figure out if we want to do some fancy intro music or not. Everybody has some fancy intro music. Even in the other podcast that I do,
Hmm.
um, we stopped doing the fancy intro stuff. I just like to just do it, just do it. For those of you guys that are gonna tune in either live or later on, um, this is a series we're calling Science Dum Dums, and basically the idea is Richard and I, although probably know a little bit more than the average human. Definitely, I think you and I would agree both equally that we probably still trying to figure it out.
Hmm.
We're still trying to understand this, and for me, I'm using this as a way to one do something potentially um, consistent and I'm not shy of saying maybe even professionally to do this stuff, but also to learn. I want to learn. I want to figure it out. I want to understand science a little bit more. So this is basically just two humans talking about stuff that they may or may not know about science, and
Hmm.
then kind of just figure it out, I guess, if we will. What's your take on what we're doing here?
Um, yeah, that's basically what it is. My background in engineering got me into a lot more um, science into quantum realm and reality and just kind of interfacing the two of them. So yeah, if I can learn as we go, as we're talking and basically being wrong about everything, we can look it up and
and
look it
and
up as we go and kind of correct ourselves on the fly.
yeah, yeah. Um, Somebody made a comment on one of the videos that we made, and we will reply to them eventually.
Mhm.
It's on my side, but yeah, there's already people commenting. It's not a ton of people. It's just like one or two humans making comments about stuff, and it's not really challenges, but it's just more kind of their analogies or whatever. I think the last one was quantum tunneling. But to your point of getting it wrong, one of the things that I want to try my best in doing, and hopefully I stay consistent with this, is kind of fact checking the previous episode
Yeah,
as best as we can, or maybe clear stuff up, clean it up a little bit more. Because sometimes we don't get it wrong. We just maybe expressed it not in the most awesome way, which could be misunderstood. So I wanted to take the opportunity. I've got my notes here. Um, we had mentioned um, I had mentioned the coin analogy for quantum tunneling.
hmm,
I'm sorry, quantum entanglement. We were talking about quantum entanglement last episode, and it's essentially a system of two particles that kind of interact, not magically, but we still don't know how they interact. They basically affect one or the other. I move one, the other one moves, and my analogy was of the coin flip, and we were having this discussion about if you open up. I my analogy was I send an envelope. One has one coin, the other one has another coin. We send them to two different locations, and if one's heads, one's tail. If you open one and it's heads, the other one kind of becomes tails, and vice versa. And that's just not the way. Uh, I kind of misspoke on that. You can't change the distance particle's outcome by acting locally. Entanglement gives correlation outcomes, not remote control. So, like, it doesn't control it.
right.
And that's kind of the way I gave it is this understanding that if I have it as heads, the other one would be tails, and but also suggested to a certain degree that if you were to flip it to tails, the other one would become heads, and that's just not the way it works.
Right.
Um,
It's just a phenomenon that happens. It's not.
Yeah.
something that you have any control over.
So again, outcomes are correlated at measurement. Post measurement manipulation does not propagate. So it's after it's measured, the quote unquote superposition or the wave function is collapsed. And that's the other thing that I wasn't too sure about is that collapsing. I think we had made a mention about entanglement doesn't collapse, but it does collapse, which is why after the measurement, they wouldn't manipulate one another. It just you already measured it. It already is what it is.
Right.
You kind of cannot change that. So that's the other thing that we had, or I had mentioned about entanglement is uh, kind of suggested, even if not directly, indirectly, that the it doesn't collapse. It doesn't collapse, but the superposition does collapse because once you measure it, that's what it is. That's what it is. Cannot change it. So there's that one. Um, then the other one is I do specifically remember saying that it's basically the same particle split, and I learned that it's not that. It is not the same particle essentially just split. These are two distinct subsystems, but that exist within the same system.
Yeah.
So, but it's not the same particle per se. It's two subsystems of one system, if that makes sense. One quantum system with multiple parts, not one particle divided.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the other stuff, it's all semantics. So I think the rest of the stuff we got mostly correct. There's just a few things to kind of tighten up and kind of clarify from previous episode. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you have anything. I'm noticing that you just show up. You're just like, ah, fuck it, let's just wing it, which I'm not mad at in any way, shape, or form. Uh, you're just like, let me just show up.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Which again, I'm not mad at in any way, shape, or form.
I'll
Oh,
start taking notes.
oh, you're good. I should send you the transcript. Is what I really should do. Is I should send you the transcript. Oh, the other one, egg on my face, because I should know better. This one was stupid when I seen that I said this, and I said that antimatter and dark matter are the same thing, and that's
Oh.
absolutely not true.
So
Uh,
dark matter is supposed to be an actual substance, whereas antimatter is the absence of a substance, right?
it's yeah, it's not the same thing in any way, shape, or form. Um, yeah, dark matter, which is out in the universe, out in space, we don't we
We
don't
don't know
really
what
know
it
what it
is.
is. We
Yeah.
don't really know. We know it's there,
Hmm.
and we see it interacting with planets and gravity and all that stuff. Like we see in math, we see the interaction. We just don't know what it is. And antimatter is exactly what you say. It's I forget the particle that oh let me see what it is. Antimatter is
Sorry, I keep adjusting my seat, man.
yeah, you're good. What is that thing? Um, it's not electrons. It's the other thing.
Oh,
Um,
are we talking about a subatomic level or?
yeah, there is an example of it. There's a word for example of antimatter. Positrons. Positron is a
Yeah.
positron. A positive electron is antimatter. That's an example of antimatter. So, anyways, yeah, not the same thing. Two different things. Not even the same fucking wheelhouse. Other than they're both physics and they're both in the universe, not the same thing. So that one was a big fuck up on my part. Not the same thing. Anyways, that's kind of the corrections from from last one.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll own everything. Everything that I said was likely wrong. So yeah, I mean, I didn't write down anything specific. So
The beauty of all of this is we're not getting a ton wrong. A
okay.
lot of the stuff that we're getting kind of highlights our limitations as quote unquote amateur scientists,
Hmm.
and that is us just trying to figure it out in our lack of in-depth day-to-day working in this, right? Like it's just like I don't work in physics. I don't work at a physics department. I'd love to, but I don't.
Yeah.
So I think if we're getting about 85 to 90% right, with
we,
our
we're
non
doing
PhD,
about as good as the professionals.
probably, probably. I mean, I hate to say it and I hate to admit it. I probably just can't articulate it as well as they can,
Hmm.
or bullshit my way through it as best as well as they can. But probably, I won't disagree there. Like, which is kind of sad. But some of this stuff we just don't have information on, right? A lot of the quantum stuff is, I don't know.
It's speculative. Is a lot of people. I mean, you'll see a lot of articles. You'll see a lot of studies and things like that. And that's what I mainly post is some of those studies. It's all still being studied, so
Yeah,
not
yeah,
everyone knows.
yeah. We're still trying to figure it out, especially the quantum thing, which is fascinating because the quantum thing's been around, man, for almost 100 years. There's
Yeah.
this idea, being able to experiment with it is relatively new because we're just now getting the technology. I had a disagreement with someone about because I had mentioned that we don't have quantum computers,
Hmm.
and their position was like, "Well, we do. They're using them for experiments." I was like, "But we can't. Like, they're still experimental. They're not. We don't actually have them. They're trying to make them work.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot point right now to a functioning live quantum computer. They're still trying to figure it out." So that was my position: is we don't actually have one. Like, you can't roll up to any location and use a practical day-to-day search engine, whatever quantum computer. It's still trying to be figured out. So
Mm.
I think there's a difference between all of that. But then, anyways, um, what are we talking about today?
So we're talking about basically human pattern recognition and basically what type of cause and effect it has. It's something that's very natural, but and everybody does it. Everybody has it. Some
Yeah.
people are a little better at it than others, but um, yeah, it causes a lot of things in society. So
Yeah, this one is I'm actually a little bit more familiar with than the physics side of it, the neuroscience side part of it. I think I love physics a little bit more than the neuroscience and biology, but science has always been my thing in general. And obviously, this is one component that's within that. But in the stuff that I actually do professionally in the self defense world, I actually talk a lot. Our program is actually heavily influenced by neuroscience, so we already have this conversation. One of the conversations we have is around this idea of how do you become an expert? How does one arrive at expert? In our society, we have this fake humbleness of like, oh, I'm never an expert. I can always get better. And that's just not true. Humans can become experts, and a a huge, probably the biggest part of being an expert is recognizing information and having a solution to that problem. So I recognize a problem. You in your world, right, in telecommunications, you acknowledge, you see a problem, and
mm,
you see what type of problem it is, and you kind of already know what the solution is. You already know, oh, this is most likely what it is.
yeah,
And this is where kind of that breakdown is for in the self-defense world is, and this is where it can be detrimental, the way our brains work.
Yep.
In telecommunications, that's helpful because you do it every single day. And there's some areas in our life where we don't experience every single day, so we won't become experts, but our brain will still try and decipher patterns where there are no patterns, and it's super fascinating the way the brain works.
Yeah. So it can control everything from your biases. It can control, there's if you're under the advanced pattern recognition, you can even say it can control premonition or intuition. So all of that is human pattern recognition. It works at a fractal level, so it's um, the ability. It's almost like a repeating patterns. You have the ability as humans to actually zoom in and zoom out, just like you can with a fractal. And so, because of that, like I said, some people are better at it than others. Um, you're able to develop certain biases based off of repeating patterns.
Yeah, fractal, define that.
I mean, a fractal is just a set of repeating patterns. It's a geometric set of repeating patterns. That's it,
Yeah.
or
So,
repeating shapes or whatever.
and I think this is where it becomes kind of weird for a brain because again, I go back to um, this idea of our day-to-day life. There's a lot of stuff we're just the same, right? The way I wake up, it's kind of the same. It's you wake up, yeah, maybe you go to the restroom, you make some coffee, you make some breakfast, you pack your lunch, you go to work, you do the same kind of the same thing at work. You come home, like those are the patterns that your brain kind of gets used to, and most of it is just in the background
Yeah.
because it's just pattern. It's the complexity of pattern recognition where, and this gets a lot deeper into like amygdala hijacking and the way the limbic system, PTSD, I guess is how some people would call that, is
Hmm.
again trying to find a pattern where there are no patterns. Again, it just your brain's constantly. So that for me is that's always the detrimental side of it. Is sometimes there is no pattern, but your brain is trying to establish a pattern, a connection according to a pattern that it's known in the past.
Hmm.
There is a study that was conducted a while back, and this is from a book called Money in Your Brain by Paul Zweig. I believe is what it's called.
Yeah.
Money in Your Brain. This is really more about gambling but it was still in relation to the pattern recognition. It's an experiment that I talk about often in our classes, in our self defense classes, to illustrate the idea that you humans, again, to a fault, are awesome at seeing patterns, but we see patterns even when there are no patterns. But anyways, they conducted a study for this, and the study was between a rat and a human,
Oh.
and they presented with two buttons, and these two buttons, one's green, one's red,
Hmm.
and basically, the green button would reward you 80% of the time. The red button would reward you 20% of the time, and the remaining of the time for either button is a shock. Now, the kicker is it was random. You don't know when it's going to happen. The rats, every time they got it correct, every so you'd have to pick it to see which time it doesn't shock you, which one is which.
Hmm.
Um, and if you guessed it correctly, you would get some sort of reward. The rat would get food, the human would get some other kind of reward for it. Rats very quickly understood that the green button, although it does shock you 20% of the time, rewards you a significantly higher amount of times. So they just started pressing the green button all the time. It didn't matter. They just pressed the green button all the time. They would accept their chances. They would accept them. Humans, on the other hand,
Yeah.
We would try to guess when the red button was going to reward us.
Hmm.
So as a consequence, rats were successful 80% of the time and humans were only successful 67% of the time. And this has a lot to do with our pattern recognition. Is this we would try to guess when there's randomness. It's random. Like you can't guess when random is going to happen. But
Yeah.
we as humans were like, but I know when it's going to happen. It's kind of this pretentiousness that we have. And a lot of it has to do with and the reason this is relevant is this experiment kind of highlights how old our hardware is. If you think about our brain in terms of hardware, and regardless of what you believe in, whether you believe in Jesus, Allah, Buddha, the universe, whoever your deity is, you must admit we come from the same source. But if we were to listen to just science,
Hmm.
humans have been around what 300,000 years, something like that, like a crazy long time. Short in terms of the universe, but we've been around for quite some time. Our species has been around for quite some time. That's
Yeah.
how old our hardware is. Our limbic system, not our high level thinking, because now we associate computers and now we associate cars and all that stuff. But our
Hmm.
limbic system, these layers of pattern recognition, that the subconscious, I guess, if you want to call it, it's that's kind of it's outdated. It's super old, and a lot of it was just for survival. I just don't want to die,
Yeah.
so it associated those patterns so that we could stay alive.
Yeah, that's pretty much all it is. So that's why you have like different meanings and coincidence, and you can sense danger, based off of certain shifts in tone because of a change in the pattern. That was basically how it was. Say you're having that coffee every morning. You get up every single morning, and then all of a sudden you get up and there's no coffee. Your body will read it as there's danger. Something's going on that just threw your whole pattern off.
Well, and humans don't, because we know so little about what happens. I just had this discussion about in the self defense world how humans don't know how a lot of stuff works.
Hmm.
So you'll hear a lot of people is like, if I don't have my morning coffee, I can't function. Well, you can. I'm sure there is some sort of chemical imbalance within your system that thinks that you can't work without coffee. Like I get it. There is a reality that if you develop a dependency on a particular subject, but a lot of it has to do with the pattern recognition. It's not really so much because you're not talking about heroin here. You're not talking about something that actually gets in between the neurons of the brain. You're talking about a simple caffeine thing.
Yeah.
But for a lot of humans, because they don't know how things operate and they don't understand a lot of what their body does and why it does it, especially the primal stuff, especially the instinctual stuff, they become almost ritualistic and they become almost superstitious about their rituals. And obviously, this happens when I do this. So maybe one day they did feel chipper and happy and yay, happy go lucky, and it was the day they had coffee. And now their brain's like, well, it must have been the coffee. So now we must have coffee in order for us to be happy. And but
Yeah.
it maybe was just, I don't know, you just genuinely felt good that day for whatever weird reason. It had nothing to do with the coffee. Sports people do this. One day they had a really
Mhm.
good game and they were wearing a particular set of shorts, or they were wearing a particular headband or whatever. Now they have to have it with them all the time because obviously that's what did it. And it's weird how
Mhm.
the brain doesn't do it in reverse. They probably lost just as many games, if not more, with
Mhm.
that same object. But their brain, for whatever reason, doesn't want to focus on the negative.
I think I wrote something about coffee. I mean, just to be a little off topic here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote something about the way that your body wakes up every morning is by spiking your cortisol levels, your stress hormone. Um, and basically that's just to wake your body up. That's all it's there to do. So if you drink coffee in the morning, if that's your thing, try to eat something, usually something with high fat, so that it can absorb some of the caffeine. Um, the reason is because the caffeine will spike your cortisol even more, um, to kind of wake you up uh, just a little bit more,
Uh-huh.
and the excess of cortisol starts to build up as fat, like belly fat and stuff. So
Well, because it's just calories at the end of the day. Like, at that point, it's just a reserve of calories.
yeah,
'Cause it's quite literally just energy. It's just extra energy that your body
it's
wasn't.
it's your body's survival system. So
Yeah.
um, yeah,
So, for those of you guys that don't know, cortisol is your quote unquote stress hormone, and that gets released at various times. But, um, anyways, yeah, it's the the pattern recognition, the just all of that is just a weird thing in our system. What else you got for us for the recognition stuff?
well, if I was to take it into my field, it's basically separating signal versus noise. So you think that being intelligent would be about collecting more and more data, learning more, and that's not actually what it is. Is learning how to filter that signal versus the noise. Um, so pattern recognition is just an art of knowing what not to pay attention to. So yeah, overexposure and stress is one of those things that you have to. I mean, once you reach a higher intelligence, you're learning how to push some of that out, and that's um, basically what that advanced pattern recognition is. A lot of my field is I work in a lot of ADHD cognition and things like that, and so um, the thing about an ADHD mind is they're exceptionally well at pattern recognition. That is one of the largest things for in an ADHD mind. Um, it's not that they're just bad at attention; they're really good at pattern recognition, but they're bad at forced relevance. So basically, they they can see the patterns, they just can't differentiate, or we can't differentiate relevance in each pattern. So we'll kind of focus on maybe the wrong thing instead of or not focus at all.
Is that really just an ADD thing though? Because I would venture out to say that most human beings have a in many contexts. So
Hmm.
maybe not in some contexts. As I'm saying this, I recognize that a lot of humans in very particular contexts, they can decipher the connection and act accordingly. But there's a lot of stuff, especially in relationships, not just intimate relationships, but just friendships, just work relationships. There's a lot of those humans who would act in a way that one would say is not normal
Right.
because of past traumas and past recognitions, and it's almost like their brain. Because again, this goes back to limbic system, whether we like it or not. If your brain recognizes a previous behavior that resulted in negative outcomes, and it's probably gonna either want to fight it, not physically, just one way or another, or run away from it. Again, not necessarily physically, but maybe shut down and
Hmm.
maybe not do the work, maybe not do any of that stuff. Like, I see that in all humans, that they have in certain contexts an inability to understand why they feel the way that they feel, and they
Yeah.
respond in ways that they feel are not consistent with their character.
Yeah, and to that, it's more of a timing thing. So I know with the ADHD mind, they see those correlations earlier than most. It's just that they kind of feel the shift, they feel the change in the pattern before they can actually explain what it is, and because of that, they kind of dismiss it because they can't explain where the pattern shift is headed or where it's supposed to be coming from. So it causes them. causes ADHD minds to not really focus on the change in that pattern, and you would think that it's inattention, and it's really not. It's just you know, they saw it early and just kind of threw it away because it didn't make sense.
Hmm. And that would be different from a quote unquote normie.
Yeah.
How?
With the, well, what you call a normie, or neurotypical mind, it's they would spot the patterns, as a in normal timing, and actually have the relevance of that pattern in normal timing. That's all it is. Um, so again, the pattern is more, they'll pay attention to it. They uh they see it in real time and then act accordingly. With an ADHD mind, they may see the pattern and then they're like, they're just like, what the fuck, man? I don't, I can't understand this. I don't know what's going on right now. And then they just, oh well, I'll just move on. And
Yeah.
that's what happens. And then when it finally catches up, they're like, I don't remember that ever happening.
Huh.
So yeah.
So the is there a since we're talking about ADHD and or ADD, all of that stuff. There is, as I understand it, and um and we've studied this quite in depth.
Mhm.
We get information through our eyes, because this is a lot of where our recognition comes from. A lot of it is sometimes through smell. Actually, no, smell is not one of the ones that would cause it, but listening, it's weird. The smell doesn't get processed, and,
It's
and we're
that's
we're gonna
later.
we're gonna have to fucking fact check this, but my understanding is smell is the only sense that does not get processed through the limbic system. The rest of the senses do get processed through the limbic system. At any rate, we see your face, we see a car, we see something. It comes in through our eyes. That's kind of fucky. It's upside down, and then our eyes have to kind of reverse it. The brain kind of reverses it. It goes through the limbic system. It gets scanned through the limbic system, and this is where it makes contact where with the hippocampus. The hippocampus being the part of the brain that deals with memory.
Mhm.
So it sees the image, it's kind of scanning the image, and then the hippocampus is like, oh, that looks familiar or looks unfamiliar for whatever reason, whatever various reasons. And it
Yeah.
goes back to the occipital lobe, which is, I guess, the software in your brain that kind of makes sense. That's a human, right? Like it's that is a human, that is a car, that is it's the software that does it. That's the best that I can explain. It's not 100%, but and then it gets sent over to our frontal cortex where we make logic out of it. That's where the logical side of it is,
Hmm.
and then it sends whatever signal. So
Yeah.
then for your guys' brains, and some people would argue that even for my brain, um, it's there's a disconnect there. There is a
Yeah.
indifference there.
The frontal cortex and the striatum is where the disconnect happens. So basically, the front of the brain and the back of the brain, there's a slight disconnect,
Mhm.
or it's not necessarily a disconnect. It's just not in sync. And what ends up happening is, so you have logic and reasoning, from those two, the logic from the prefrontal cortex, the
And that's in the
striatum.
frontal cortex, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
striatum has the reasoning, puts the meaning behind it.
But that's still within the frontal cortex, right? The
Um,
reason.
Reasoning should be, there is an element of reasoning in your prefrontal cortex,
What part of the brain were you talking about?
the striatum. Let's see.
Um, got it. Striatum brain. I just want to see if there's an image of it, so that the humans kind of understand a little bit where it's at.
Okay, so
Um,
it's motor movement and
oh, it's
reward
it's
based.
actually part of the limbic system, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah, it's what controls your dopamine and your reward.
Okay, let me get that up. Boom, there we go. We should be able to see it right there. There it is. Um, so it's that basically that little green part.
I see.
Um, oh yeah, because there's the thalamus, and then hypothalamus would be somewhere around there. So maybe it isn't part of the um, because those little that little yellow, that little
Hmm.
almond looking thing,
To think.
uh, that would be your amygdala, if I'm not mistaken. But then, anyways, that's pretty interesting. Super interesting.
Yeah, so
Anyways, you were saying
that's what controls your serotonin, your dopamine, and basically your entire reward
the
system. So
reward system.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting because the thalamus is kind of the not necessarily the opposite, but that's what controls your cortisol and sends a signal down to your adrenal glands to release the norepinephrine and what we would call adrenaline and all that
Hmm.
stuff in the limbic system. So there's a disconnect there, is what you were saying.
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily a disconnect, but it's just not in sync. So um, once the logic is figured out in the prefrontal cortex, the striatum is supposed to automatically reward with that dopamine response, and it sometimes doesn't. So it's just not in sync with the prefrontal cortex. That's all.
Do they know what the disconnect is? Like what is the lack of syncing? Is there any enough study for it?
Just a slowed response. That's all from the striatum. I don't necessarily like. I've done very light study on that. But yeah, it's just from what I hear, it's a slower response, and that's all it is.
But it's one of those that we just don't know why it happens. Probably theories. We just don't fully understand why
Yeah.
there's a delayed reaction. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the ADD, ADHD stuff. For sure, have studied at lengths. In our program, we have a lot of neuroscientists kind of quote unquote co-sign what we're talking about, make sure that we're not fucking it up completely because we are teaching humans about self-defense and the body's natural reactions and there's always this big misunderstanding of what a reaction is versus a response and this idea that there's a lot of choreography in
Hmm.
self-defense, which we disagree with, because it does not allow you to work with your pattern recognition, the positive side of pattern recognition, which is a stimulus response pattern. If a particular stimulus happens, you ought to have a response for it, and you're kind of helping your what your brain does anyways. If this
Hmm.
happens, I'm going to do this. Um,
Well, that's also where the striatum's role is through that response, it's supposed to be able to control your motor functions as well. So if there's a disconnect from your logic and that striatum, you can kind of misconstrue a response, and that's where you have the those biases that come up in that in pattern recognition, where you may have threat assessment. You're trying to assess a threat, and you may think certain something that's just not there, or that's just not happening. So a lot of that is because of the that disconnect of prefrontal cortex, your logic, and your striatum, which is controlling your motor function, and of course your dopamine and reward system.
yeah, that's crazy. I'm trying to think about um, in my very limited understanding of this, like how it could potentially just what the out of syncness is, like why it doesn't send the signals properly. Is that really the biggest issue between um normies and ADHD people?
It's one of the issues.
Yeah.
It's ADHD has many different facets of how they think, and just the way that the brain works. But In a physical sense, yeah, that would be one of the major issues. So you'll find a lot of people, uh, diagnosed with ADHD. Some people say, well, you move slower in this particular thing, or you procrastinate a lot, or you know they you may think that they're not moving as fast, where they feel like their brain is just racing, and it's only because of that sync, or that out of sync reward system. So they're moving fast in their mind.
In their brain, you guys are moving fast,
Hmm.
but in reality, you guys are slow as fuck.
Yeah,
In particular, in some context, in some
in some
context,
contexts.
yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to things like pattern recognition and stuff, we're moving at lightning speed. That's how ADHD works. As long as it stays in my brain, yeah, I can basically do anything.
So the recognition itself remains the same. It's your reaction, or I'm sorry, your response to the recognition. That's the only difference.
That's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Um, in
Because
ADHD brains, pattern recognition is significantly faster than, say, in a neurotypical brain. You're able to recognize the patterns. You just can't move on them.
well,
So
that's pretty fucking fast because so my understanding is your recognition is um for your average human being so fast that your quote unquote subconscious. I always have a problem with the idea of subconscious because that's not really what it is.
mhm,
There's plenty of studies, and maybe we could talk about this some other time, and I'm sure we will. But this idea of subconscious is not really what neuroscientists would talk about it. That's not how they would talk about it. Your subconscious. That's just what humans understand it as. Is
yeah,
it this whatever? So we'll just roll with it for now. Subconscious. Your subconscious understands the pattern before you understand your conscious brain. I've always understood this as your system one, system two. System one is everything that happens in the background, the
mhm,
stuff you don't think about. You just breathe. I'm moving my hands right now. I don't really think about it. I just do it. It's all system one stuff. System two stuff is the stuff that you actually have to think about. It's stuff when you're learning a new skill, learning a new trade, learning something new. Your brain is actually paying attention to it. So in our recognition of information, the pattern recognition, it's about 200 milliseconds, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little bit less, give or take.
mhm,
200 milliseconds it takes for our brain, our subconscious, to understand and recognize a pattern. That's fucking fast.
yeah.
Um, that is like I know the thing before I know the thing, if that makes sense.
And I would argue with ADHD, it would be more so. I'll give you that it's probably the same speed, but maybe the level of detail in the pattern is
Okay.
something that, because the way that I kind of frame ADHD is more in the quantum realm, where it's like a multi-dimensional way of thinking, or a multi-dimensional architecture of thinking. So instead of it being like a straight line of process, it's more like a tree branch. So with ADHD, you have different points at the ends of every branch, and the ADHD mind is able to think of each one of those points at the same exact time, but then they can only focus in on one.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why ADHD people are not very if effective or efficient in many things.
yeah,
Um, really difficult completing tasks and shit like that. Again, I've never really been properly diagnosed, but I think if you ask anybody that lives around me, they'd probably say like this motherfucker's got some ADHD because I'm genuinely one of these where like I can do something for maybe an hour
yeah.
and then I gotta stop. And then my brain's just like, yeah, you need to go chase another squirrel, go do something else, and
Man,
then
my
come back.
Monday posts that I put out, I have people that are messaging me like self-diagnosing.
Yeah,
off of those posts, and I'm like, yeah, you don't want to do that off
yeah,
of.
correct. Because that could just be a normal thing that most humans have. I mean, humans, the human brain is so, again, it's such an old technology. Like our brain has not had a system update. There's no evidence that in the 300,000 years of our existence we have evolved that much. Sure, we have different people in Mexico who are shorter, hairier because of climate, and
Mhm,
there's people up north that are maybe a little bit taller and less hair because of climate, and there's people who live around water systems who can breathe around underwater. Like there's signs of that. It is environmental adaptations, but there's no scientific evidence that we as humans have evolved to a new species from when we became a species 300,000 years ago. So, in other words, 300,000 years ago today, if we compared the two, it same shit. The wiring's the same, the brain's the same size for them. Again, for the most part, we're
mhm.
speaking general here. So it's crazy to believe um, that our brain is limited as it is, that most humans don't suffer from the same thing of like, fuck, I've been doing the same thing for 20 minutes. I need a break. I need to go get some fresh air really quick and then come back. Cause there are some times where like there's days where I'll be working on something for 6 hours. And
Mhm.
before you know, it's fucking 4 a.m. I'm like, holy shit, I haven't
Time
slept.
dilation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
hyper focus. So yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
I believe everybody does have that. I mean, like I was saying, neurotypical would be more straight line, more arrow, where ADHD brains will be more fractal. So you're just kind of focusing in on one particular part of
Yeah.
the pattern.
Which is difficult to believe. It happens, I'm sure. I'm not a doctor in that, but it's difficult to believe because our brains are so linear.
Hmm.
Our brains, our human brains, just like shit in a straight line. Like that's the way I like say it. Because again, our brain very much works. If this happens, I do this, or
Right.
my body reacts in this way. What you're saying is that even with ADHD, ADD people, it's the same shit. It just when I will respond to it maybe later.
It could be. It could be like the your logic part hasn't quite caught up to that particular pattern. So it's like when this happens, your brain is like, what is that? I don't understand why that just happened. Now, once your logic comes up, then it comes back and it's like, oh, that's why that happened, and this is what my response should have been. So that's an ADHD brain.
I wonder if there's been a a developmental issue with you guys in a form of trauma. Not necessarily like you bumped your head or that, like
Mhm.
not like that, but like can you guys pinpoint to like a certain trauma and then maybe potentially fix it? Like, is it really what I'm trying to get at is the ADD really just a form of amygdala hijack? And amygdala hijack, I'm going to put it up here um, for the humans to read. If we ever end up putting this on audio, I'll kind of read for you guys. But amygdala hijack is a very specific um, form of, I guess, fucked up way of information processing. But an amygdala hijack is when the brain's emotional center, the amygdala, triggers an intense immediate fight or flight response to a prospective threat, overriding rational thought, prefrontal cortex, leading to a disproportionate reaction to sudden anger, panic, or shutting down, often in non life threatening situations like difficult conversation or traffic jam. So it's not exactly that, but it almost seems like it is a form of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, some people will predate, uh, ADHD response to early stages of fight or flight, basically a survival um, mechanism within the brain.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure how true that is, especially with some of the research that I've been doing as of late. It's more so. I wouldn't say that it's a natural fight or flight response. I would say it's more so just um, being able to think not quite linearly. Just you're thinking on a multi level of of um,
Hmm.
your pattern recognition is more so your focus. You have more than one thought happening at the same exact time. Um, you just have to pick which one to go with.
I wonder if your copper wiring in your fucking brain, you're not obviously not your literal copper wiring, but like your neurons. Again, there might be studies. I didn't look this up. I didn't realize we were going to talk about this so in depth. But I wonder if your guys is if you guys the short circuiting is happening because this is a layered thing. Pattern recognition is a layered thing, right? Like it
Mhm.
involves those layers of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the occipital lobe, and I think one more part of the brain for all of this stuff to actually work. I have the notes here. I don't know why I'm not going to the notes. So it's let me go up. Visual cortex, prefrontal cortex, and then the parietal, occipital lobe, and temporal areas. Those are so it's multi-layered.
Mhm.
So I wonder if there's a study or something where it has shown where like one of those little fucking nerves is making
Firing.
contact with the other one, and it's kind of just
Yeah,
sending the like overlapping a signal to another place instead of like maybe it's going from the visual cortex straight to the fucking prefrontal cortex instead of making its route the normal way where it goes to the occipital lobe.
that could
Um,
be it. Just a rerouting.
just a rerouting, like your wires are just rerouted.
So what does the medication do? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How would that fix it?
Yeah, I
But
don't
I
know.
don't know. I can focus a little better.
But there's always the chance
Hmm.
that it's the placebo effect, right?
Yeah, it could be.
There's always the chance that it's the placebo effect. Probably not, because I'm sure there's plenty of studies and MRIs to show that it's not just the placebo effect, but there is always the chance that it is just the placebo effect and it's really not doing anything.
Right.
Um, I doubt it. There's so many people with it and so many people on the medications where maybe not, or it's just sedation. Maybe it's just fucking sedation, and that's what calms your brain down a little bit. You're not thinking about it so much. You're not. Maybe you guys are just overthinkers.
Yeah, yeah. Overthinkers and just kind of turn against ourselves all the time.
All the time. That's humans, though. I think that's
Yeah.
humans. I think this is where um the quote unquote I don't know how to describe this, but the communities kind of lose me
Hmm.
when like this whole idea of fighting against yourself, that's just very much a human thing. Like the human brain
Yeah, it's
can
gonna
be
be hard on itself.
so fucked up to yourself.
Yeah, it's gonna be very hard on itself, and I think that's the whole reason for medication anyway, because you're already thinking like, I need something. I need to I need help somewhere.
Oh yeah, I don't take anything. I don't even drink alcohol. And there's days where like, man, last night I wrote an email.
Hmm.
It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I serve on a committee of several things here in the state of Colorado. And this is a state level organization. And I basically sent them an email telling them they were full of shit. This is at 3 o'clock in the morning. And of course, when I woke up and they replied, I was like, oh, fuck. Uh, I could just imagine the dumb shit I would send if I drank alcohol or if I did drugs or if I was on some sort of medication. Like I can imagine my inbox.
Yeah, I can't imagine Edgar with remove filters. That'll be crazy.
Yeah, because this is me without
Yeah.
like without any
Uh,
um any drugs, any imagine like zero, like none whatsoever. This is me at my maximum filters. And in this podcast, nobody gets to see that side of it because we're talking about science.
we're talking about science, the nice
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
the
go ahead.
thing about if you have that advanced pattern recognition, it's almost like you can make yourself look prophetic pretty much. You can recognize patterns really fast, and then all of a sudden you're speaking things that other people haven't caught up yet, and it's just because you're able to recognize patterns really quickly. um and that's as long as everything is in sync.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you get it wrong, then yeah, it looks real chaotic at that time.
I
So
guess my pushback to that would be is how much of this is um in therapy they would call it self-prophesizing.
mhm.
And this is the idea that you say because of your past traumas, people who are batshit crazy will do this. They what they'll do or super emotional or self-sabotaging or whatever, they'll do this. They'll say, "Well, no, I'm not gonna do that because if I do this, it will just this will happen."
Yeah.
And at any sign, even if it isn't that, they'll be like, "See, this is what happened. I knew this was gonna happen." So it's not so that's why they call it self-prophesizing. Like that's not what happened. That's just what you are adding to it because of your past traumas. This is the wall that you're adding to it.
Yeah.
Um, so in an example would be in friendships, like people build up walls and they're like, no, I'm not going to be friends with them because um, they're just going to fuck me over or whatever. And then one day your friend will forget to text you. I'm just giving bullshit now. And then they don't text you. And then you're like, see, I knew it. We can't be best friends because they didn't text me. Well, people have lives and people forget or whatever, or
Yeah.
phones die or whatever. But in your brain, like, see, I already knew it. Like that's the self-prophesizing thing is. So I wonder how because you had mentioned is like it's kind of prophesying prophetic,
Hmm.
but I wonder how much of it is just like it's probably not what you thought it was gonna be.
No, no, it's when you're wrong about it, and that's where the chaos starts to come in because you recognize the pattern. Then you made it hit that prefrontal cortex. You put logic to it, um, but it's the logic that came from your past trauma, and then you acted on the pattern that you recognize based off of the past trauma. That's the biases that I talk about, and that's where because of that you've now prophesied what's going to happen to between that friendship based off of your past trauma and the pattern that you saw. So
Which is different than what you're suggesting with ADD or ADHD.
ADHD will recognize the pattern, and then that's it. Um, they'll kind of dismiss it because at the time that they've recognized it, it doesn't make sense. So
Oh, so there's almost no action behind it. It's just like there's a pattern,
mhm.
but I don't know what the pattern is. Got it. Which you did mention earlier is just like I don't understand what the pattern is. I'm gonna walk away from this. Um, more than let me respond to this feeling, this
Yeah.
emotion, this
So it wouldn't be immediate action.
mhm.
A lot of people will say, "Well, you're procrastinating, or you just you feel as though you don't have to act on certain things." But it's not that you don't have to act on it. It's that you haven't quite caught up. The logic hasn't caught up with the reason to act on it yet. So you've recognized the pattern. Your brain now has moved on. 5 steps ahead to something completely different, and you may think back on it when an action actually happens that that would affect or the logic comes in or whatever for that past
Yeah,
pattern that you saw. Once that comes in, then all of a sudden you start to think back, oh yep, that's what that was, that's what that pattern was.
got it. This is interesting. When I read the transcripts and I go through all this shit, it's gonna be fascinating to see what the fuck I find out about all this shit.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how much more I can talk about this stuff. I think I said all the stuff that I wanted. There's obviously a lot that goes around with pattern recognition, but it's I think high level general stuff without digging in too deep. I think that's about as we can get because it enters into bias. It enters into because you mentioned that it enters into the bias. It enters into how you respond to things,
Hmm.
your judgment to a certain degree about other things or humans, which all by themselves can kind of take up a full episode, a full hour. So
Yeah, with in your world, you're looking at threat assessment and self defense, and so yeah, your pattern recognition, you're putting your own bias to whatever the threat is. So
well,
whatever your past trauma.
in our world, threat assessment, like the way we talk about it, is in many times it's an illusion.
Hmm.
Like humans are looking for threats again because you don't know what the threat is going to be,
Right.
and you yourself don't have enough experience with threats to know what the threats are. So you're basing it off of other people's understanding of a threat,
Hmm.
and your brain has a difficult time because it has no connection. So this is the problem with self-defense people is if I ask you, Richard, you yourself in a civilian environment, how many times has a bad guy held up a knife and said, "Give me your wallet right now, Richard"?
Only once when I was little, but that's
Yeah,
and
like
that has to do with environment as well. So
for sure, for sure. But even the people in your environment,
mhm,
you're probably one of very few humans that actually happened to. They probably know of somebody that it happened to.
yeah.
Like you saying one time when I was little is actually a lot of times. Like that's a high number because for most human beings the number is zero. So most
Hmm.
human beings actually don't experience that level of violence in their life. So they train and they practice and they come up with some really wild shit based off of other people's experiences, and even that your experience is probably and we can prove that it probably didn't happen exactly the way you say it happened.
Yeah.
So because of the way the brain works, like it just plain and simple, the way the hippocampus works is in the way
You're not going to
tachypsychia
remember.
works and the way everything connects, it's probably not the way it happened,
Yeah,
but
I won't remember the fine details. No.
which is yeah for sure. But people will type this up, they'll say it on Reddit, they'll say, "This is what happened to me," or they will design an entire self-defense plan based off of one situation
Hmm.
without really understanding that self-defense is, I don't know if I'm gonna get attacked, I don't know where it's gonna be, I don't know what time it's gonna be. But if you look at most self-defense plans, it's very choreographed, it's very well, it's going to be at this distance and I'm going to shoot this many times and I'm going to use my hands this way and I'm going to put them in a headlock and it's very choreographed. And
Hmm.
when it happens, your brain doesn't actually have a real repetition or experience with it. It's all been made up in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
And then this is where you get cops who write a report
Hmm.
and then they go to court based off of that report and then they watch the video. We see these in court all the time where the cop wrote a report like, well, you wrote this in your report, but let's watch the video. And then they watch the dash cam and they're like, do you think that's what happened based off of the video? And they're like, no, what I wrote down is not consistent with what actually happened. um that's because their brain, their limbic system kicks in And again, this threat assessment is this really wild, weird thing that we
It
like.
writes how it feels at that in that
ki-
particular moment. It's not going to write what actually happened. So
Well, aside from that, you're remembering what happened in training, not what actually happened in. You remember what was supposed to happen, not what actually did happen, if that makes sense. But the detriment is that if you're training based off of, or you're doing threat assessment based off of somebody's anomaly or somebody else's experience, then you're not actually doing threat assessment. So
mhm.
even then, the pattern recognition gets really fucky because again, we're looking for patterns where patterns don't exist.
All right.
Um, and it makes it weird. And yeah, it does bleed into the bias. It does bleed into prejudice and dare I say a level of racism and a level of sexism and a level of whatever other isms because of it. So it's such an interesting subject.
And actually, I think I wrote one about cognitive holography. It's basically the brain's ability to create entire realities full of emotions and things like that. So that's something I wrote it as one of the ADHD cognition series, but
Yeah,
I always had a caveat about it that said, no, I think that this is not an ADHD specific.
for everyone.
Yeah, this is everyone. Your brain has the ability to create an entire reality, and it plays like a movie in your head. Um,
Make shit up.
yeah, yeah,
Make shit up. I have a Key and Peele when they had their show, they have a skit
mhm,
and I always liken this. I always remember like that's Isaac and me basically. And if you haven't seen it, is basically Key and Peele. One's writing, the other one a text message,
mhm. Oh,
and and one of
I
them is
know
like, "So are we gonna meet up or not?" It's like, "Oh, it's whatever." Like, "Oh, motherfucker, it's whatever or
it.
whatever." And the other person, their reality is all calm, collected, like, "Oh, cool, this guy wants to hang out." And then the other, this motherfucker. Uh, so the way their brain interprets it is it's very subjective. It's very based off of their own perception of what the fuck's going on. So like it's such a weird, and it ends up with them meeting up at a bar, and one has like a bat ready to fucking go, and then the other one's like, "Oh shit, I'm
Yeah,
glad we met up." Like it's and yeah, that's humans just coming up with their own reality. This is my reality. This is why we talk about in classes. Your feelings don't matter. Like only the facts matter.
yeah,
Um, because we all collect the same information, and it's fucking wild how we decipher that information very differently.
hmm,
We hear what isn't said, we see what isn't there. It's just your brain making shit up based off of your own traumas, based off of your own whatever.
hmm,
And this is what we caution for folks with pattern recognition is that's what your brain is recognizing based off of whatever bullshit life you've lived or whatever amazing life you've lived. Sometimes it's the pattern that it's recognizing. It's kind of fuck you because you lived in a world of sunshines and rainbows,
oh yeah,
and sometimes it's fuck you because you lived a really fucked up life. So like everything is bad to you.
hmm,
It's such a weird thing, the brain and the limbic system and all that. So
yeah.
well, cool. Anything else you want to add to this stuff?
No, this one I think we covered a lot here.
Yeah, we talked about some stuff, ventured out of it a little bit, but I
I
think
can't
still
wait for the
related.
corrections next week.
What's that?
Can't wait for the corrections next week.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we have much. I think if we have any, it'll be. I would venture out to say that if we do have any, it's stuff that I meant to say a certain way, but I said a different way. But either way, I'll send you the transcripts. I'll send you the transcripts.
Awesome.
Um, and other than that, I appreciate your guys' time. Thanks for hanging out. To the handful of people that are currently watching, hopefully this continues to grow a little bit. And we do have a few people commenting. So if you guys want to comment, do the replies. That helps us out. Obviously, if you guys comment, sharing it, liking it, doing all that shit. But yeah. Oh, people can find you, Richard Fletcher, on
Facebook.
just Facebook.
Yeah, I post on LinkedIn as well, but Facebook is where you're going to get all the new stuff.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Just because we're old and that's where we hang out is you don't
Facebook.
have an Instagram?
I do. It's just r.m.fletcher. But
Uh,
everything that I post on Facebook posts to Instagram as well, so
okay,
it's all the same stuff.
same shit,
Yeah.
same shit. Cool.
And I do have these shows will air on my channel as well. Just Engineer of Reality. That's the channel name.
Oh, that's what you put it under, engineer of reality.
Yeah.
Engineer of reality. That's what you got it on. Yeah, we have several people watching on your channels. Super duper appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Small right now, but hopefully it grows and it gets better. And the only way we do that is with people watching and sharing it and all that stuff. Don't be selfish. Share us. Challenge us. Tell us we
Challenge
we
us
fucked up.
big time.
Yeah. That's the
I
beauty of science is I've always loved science because science at its core has no emotion, and it's a bunch of humans saying, well, you're wrong, and then here's why you're wrong, or like, ah, no, I fucked up, I'm wrong. And because it doesn't care where you came from, what your political affiliation is, what any of that. That's what I've always loved about science to a degree, is aside from the fact that it's fascinating, is all it cares about is facts.
Yep.
That's all it cares about is facts. That's it. That's it. So yeah, challenge us. Don't be shy about that shit in any way, shape, or form.
If you
Um,
if you catch something that we said and you're like, "Nah, these guys are dumb." Yeah, I mean, we are, but um
but
so
also expect the same in return if you're the dumb one.
yeah, we
Uh,
we will call you out. So
yeah, for sure, for sure. So I always look for that. So, anyways, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for spending an evening with us, or whenever you're watching this. But thanks for watching it. I appreciate you guys.
see it.